I read the text of this city and exist in a space that will never be my own. I cannot rewrite, overwrite, or erase. I can only obey its syntax. The structure of the street is designed to induce fear in me. The rhythm of this street after midnight is slow. It is deadly silent, broken by vibrating engines and sudden shouts of men from their cars. It is punctuated by men walking down the road toward me in large groups, refusing to let me pass. It is a curation of implicit violence.
The street is a dangerous place for a woman. This is as true in cinema as it is in real life. Picture the scene. A woman walking home alone at night, her body lying in a dirty alleyway behind a dumpster, wrapped in plastic. This reflects a cold, ever-present reality for women. If something happens to you on your way home, you only have yourself to blame. In revenge stories, the inciting incident is often depicted as visceral and violent. Women are sometimes driven insane by such traumatic incidents, if they survive at all, and seek to exact their revenge in a similarly violent manner. There is violence, too, in a leering gaze, a discomforting, intrusive stare from across the street. In cinema, women learn to read this language, not simply because we have learned to read it in real life, but because we see it on screen so often. 20 years ago, Jane Campion directed an adaptation of Susanna Moore's 1995 novel, In the Cut, which tells the story of Franny, a professor living in New York's Greenwich Village. When a murder occurs in her neighborhood and the body is found near her apartment, Franny becomes entangled in the investigation and involved with the detective in charge.
How you doing?
Do I know you?
In Moore's book, the story is told from Franny's perspective, giving the reader direct access to her thoughts. Campion instead chooses not to utilize first-person narration. In her film, the psychology of the characters is conveyed through camera movement. She adopts a male gaze, or perhaps what she imagines the male gaze to be, with Franny often half hidden from view. Glances are stolen from the rearview mirror or from across the street. By placing her camera at street level, Campion ensures that we, too, are watching Franny. When it comes to the physical spaces the characters occupy, Campion incorporates landmarks specific to Lower Manhattan. Iconic street corners are often clearly visible, and at one point we see Franny exit the subway at Bleecker Street. In the Cut does not unfold on the generic streets of a generic city, but in the United States, in New York City. As a character, Franny is direct, defiant. She handles the men in her life with a combination of confidence and flippancy. Though Meg Ryan's performance was derided by some critics at the time, arguably derailing her career as a consequence, she plays against type to thrilling effect. Ryan trades in her bubbly rom-com persona for something more cool and subdued, a demeanor described as tranquilized by the likes of Roger Ebert and A.O. Scott. In their respective reviews, these male critics question why Franny willingly puts herself in danger time and time again. But it seems like they miss the point. The film is rooted in Franny's neighborhood, the streets where she walks every day. The danger she feels is very real. She knows there is a killer on the loose and that she could be the next victim, yet she still chooses to walk. It's this tension between an awareness of potential danger and a willingness to risk her life that underpins the film's eroticism. The power and agency that Franny assumes by walking bleeds slowly into other aspects of her life, most of all, her relationship with Detective Malloy. As the audience, we feel a fear that belongs only to us. sympathetic voyeurs who have learned to read the language of cinema. In the Cut isn't a rape-revenge fantasy. Instead, the film is a rare treatise on the power of the independent woman and the city she knows by heart. To quote Rhythms of Fear, a singular piece of psychogeographic analysis by writer Laura Mall,
For the woman walking, there is an invisible geography of urban space. She sees a blueprint of the city in a way that men cannot, an invisible cartography of fear and violence. The city is constructed in shortcuts I can't take. I am chased. He is the chaser. I am afraid. He is safe. Walking is a political act for women, an assertion of the right to occupy space.
Since In the Cut's release in 2003, there has been a surge of female directors who, now afforded the opportunity to make films in the independent and mainstream worlds alike, have examined and in turn subverted a woman's place in the street. Anna Lily Amirpour's A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night evokes this trend through its title alone. The vampiress at the film's center reverses the same predatory gaze which Campion utilizes. Emerald Fennell's Promising Young Woman portrays a rape-revenge fantasy gone wrong, with a candy-colored aesthetic to match. The film's ending is brutal, and while perhaps realistic, lacks a sense of either catharsis or closure. Before Irish filmmaker Kate Dolan directed her debut feature, You Are Not My Mother, she made the playful horror short Catcalls, a cautionary tale equal parts sinister and satisfying. And yet, 20 years after its release, much of In the Cut's thrill still lies not in obvious violence.
How many ladies have to die to make it good?
At least 3.
But in the spaces between streets, between people, between choices. This is what makes its conclusion, one which differs from its book counterpart, so cathartic. Franny doesn't die horribly on screen. We see her walk home at the end, barefoot and broken but alive, because she has chosen to live in the same way she has chosen to walk the streets of her city, the ultimate testament to her resilience.